I could do naught else other than wish all good things for Lee, thanking him for the good times we shared. I wished and hoped that he was not disappointed. It was also when I started creating a few more works of art for exhibitions in earnest, and planned to have a series of paintings depicting parts of the world I had frequented. Often I walked to nearby cafes and drank lots of coffee while making new friends along Ackland Street. Maybe I was in need to drown my worries in those cups, and Reg used to take short walks, meeting me from time to time. He enjoyed those outings, but his health had further deteriorated. He told me that his recent medical tests showed that he had developed advanced prostate cancer in addition to his other problems, and the only chance for him to recover was a long overdue, life-saving operation. Sadly, he chose not to lose his manliness, as he put it. It was now a case of waiting for the inevitable. In fact, shortly before I made my way to Perth, he started preaching to me about the benefits of ending his life by overdosing himself with medication he collected, asking me to share the experience with him. He claimed that I had also lost what was so dear to me. Feeling obliged, I explained that I was very much for life, and chose life no matter how it was experienced, for I loved life with all its ups and downs, but could not fully comprehend why such a thought had been proposed by him. He was recommended to lose a lot of weight before any treatment could be considered, and walking was the best exercise so far. But I still ask, what made Reg think that I would go along with his suggestion of committing suicide with him? That was very sad, yet I made sure he understood that I would never share this desire of his. There have been some others who expected me to do so in the past, making me wonder what they would gain from my demise. Sadly, I knew that Jehovah's Witnesses, and particularly my ex-wife, would be pleased about my physical end, but I was not going to give her and her associates the satisfaction. I still remember when I was questioned by the authorities about why I had faked my death once upon a time, obliging me to tell them the true reality, clarifying that it was none of my doing, and without my knowledge. They questioned me about my children's name change, which did not have my written consent, and they were informed about my having vacated the earth, and therefore it was apparently all right for them to assume the mother's chosen name. As I spoke about this before, I found it very interesting for people who allegedly believe Lord Jesus' teaching the world to love one another and be forgiving to behave in such a manner. They were also commanded not to judge, for God was the only authority. I was certain that they believed the Bible's advice, the meek will inherit the earth. Were they really as meek as Magda was? In absolute reality, their meekness, acceptance, and love can be equated only to hatred, after all the ugly experiences many of us had endured with them. If you notice, they do not teach about the love of God, but fear of God. Obviously, their God expects their complete dedication in absolute terror and trepidation, for he delights inflicting them with devotional fear and not love. Do they really accept Jesus' teachings as they preach? It is hard to accept that people can be so evil, and therefore my sincere advice to those contemplating joining them is be careful and don't jump into the fire. Despite all this, I chose life over destruction. I chose love over hatred. This is who I am. For a while, I was enjoying some quiet time, painting, recording my impressions, or reading from a few interesting books onto my reel-to-reel recorder. At times I found myself talking about my own concerns, dreams, and nightmares. Recording those issues was healing, as it was helping me to look at them more objectively. For a while, at least, I completely isolated myself from a number of people, yet occasionally I met my eccentric friend Andreas in places like Australia Arcade and other prominent venues for a snack and chat. At times we also met up with Reg. Meeting those two friends was refreshing and helping in forgetting my own concerns for a short while. I could not help but wonder why I was subjected to such a lot of criticism and hatred from people towards whom I remained always truthful, whether they realized it or not. In regard to my ex-family, I have been completely segregated and in truth utterly hated for not being in the witness faith and for apparently all the evil deeds which could be expected of me as an unbeliever who conjured up evil spirits and cast evil spells to harm people. Amusingly, I must add that whenever so-called Jehovah's Witness friends encountered me, they rushed to the other side of the road to avoid the evil influence. Why was it so? Simply because I practiced psychology, which was, for the all-knowing witnesses, allegedly the practice of psychic endeavors, black magic, and spiritualism, in other words, devil worship. Maybe I had met the wrong people amongst them, who did not know any better, but all my efforts had been met with complete opposition when I attempted to converse with those who appeared to be more cognizant about the issues I raised. During my studies and practice of psychology, I never came across any of the subjects I was accused of. Such practices would not normally be regarded as being criminal, but for the witnesses, being a part of the world, supporting a political party, saluting the flag, and belonging to another belief system, could only be considered as a great crime against the God they worship. It was hard to imagine that people involved in psychic endeavors or spiritualism were judged as evildoers. Questions remain unanswered. As mentioned before, when they claim to be guided by the Spirit, do they realize that they are literally showing the world they are channeling the Spirit of God? One tends to ask, which one? Perhaps their adherers should take note of their recent declaration of not being inspired of God, and that they can err, and therefore one feels like asking, how can they be Spirit-guided? According to their fundamental teachings, any spirit communication can only be evil. Likewise, a psychologist may have different viewpoints about life and understanding the nature of human beings, but he or she can never be accused of being in opposition to any supreme entity people choose to worship. In the science of psychology, nobody is judged as an evildoer, but everybody may be assisted to understand the cause of their stress, concerns, and happiness. When there is need to treat a disorder, systematic methods are utilized, and common sense prevails. The closest associates of my ex-wife, however, although preaching not to be judgmental, could only bitterly criticize everybody not belonging to their own belief system. In fact, many religious or government agencies providing great assistance to the needy have been enthusiastically condemned by these so-called righteous witnesses. Here one remembers the wise words of Chief Seattle. Humankind has woven the web of life. We are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. All things are bound together. All things connect. It is very easy to belittle anybody and criticize the endeavors of others But it is vital to remember that to be little is to be little. One hopes that those associates of my ex-partner can take note of this. While living in St. Kilda, I was befriended with George and his wife, who had an old second-hand and antiques shop on the corner of Berkeley and Ackland Streets. As soon as one emerged from the unit I occupied, the second shop on the right was theirs, where one could find all kinds of treasures and interesting bargains, books and magazines of yesteryear. Antique vases particularly gained my attention in their bric-a-brac shop, and if one was really lucky, one could even find old motorcycle parts there. He offered me very old and rare long-playing records of ages ago for free, saying that I was a very kind person and very friendly with everybody. Behind his meticulously trimmed white beard, a well-educated man kept smiling, but being none too pleased about his balding head, he had new hairs transplanted in rows, which stood like miniature soldiers standing precisely in line. Bemused, he used to say how ugly it was once, and his head looked like Frankenstein's monster, but he was happy now. We shared many cups of tea in their shop, having friendly conversations on almost every subject one could imagine. Born in the Middle East, he never looked the part, and was certainly not accented, and anybody talking with him would know he was from an English-speaking background. I often used to frequent various record and bookstores, and naturally the coffee shops along Ackland Street. I am sure that I have left very pleasant memories for many people, for I was always friendly with everybody. I have also drawn caricatures of people for free, making them laugh. Many times I drew a caricature of myself and gave it to people. It became almost like my calling card. I certainly made many friends there. In one of the coffee lounges, I met a German lady and talked about the weather and people's problems in general. One day she surprised me when she cordially asked me if I was who she thought I was. She recognized me as Magda's lovely husband, who many Jehovah's Witnesses did not talk good things about. She said she was studying with some witnesses from the nearby congregation and was thinking to symbolize her dedication to Jehovah. Another time, following that encounter, she asked me to congratulate her, for she had now become a baptized sister, and told me her son was once interested in Birgit. However, apparently Magda advised her not to be involved with him. She said she was told that Magda went to Perth, and did not realize that we were no longer together as husband and wife. If she had not been told anything, she would never know what was really happening, and found it impossible to believe that I did not know my wife and children's whereabouts. Even when I was living in Perth, I had no idea that they had absconded there. Maybe the white-haired witch conjured up a biblical curse to keep me away, making sure the children were kept at a distance from the wicked. In fact, all I knew was that Magda simply took the children and vanished, but this German lady was disturbed about such an abduction, which could not be done by a God-fearing Jehovah's Witness. Who knows, she might have thought that perhaps she was wrong about her decision to be dedicated to their faith. Then again, it might not have been so, because through their forever repeated suggestions, witnesses create a mindset akin to becoming totally brainwashed within their Bible students' psychological makeup, going house to house like zombie robots, repeating forever the same words as dictated. I have witnessed it throughout the years of my association with friends who belonged to the witnesses. In saying this, I am not opposing anybody, but stating the facts without prejudice. However, something important was desperately missing in my life, and I could not pinpoint it at the time. Lecturing on a sessional basis on subjects of behavioral psychology was not enough. I contemplated starting a group for people who were keenly interested in discovering, even researching into life's intriguing questions, like myself. Why, for example, did humanity develop into its current state? What indeed changed the world into what it is today? I was keen to discover the viewpoints of ancient and modern philosophers, and so decided to find out what people were doing in mind research. I tried a few already existing small groups, with some of my friends who were involved with them. Ross was one of them, and we frequented group activities by attending free lectures. Some were presented at the Theosophical Society, others in people's private homes, with friends like Ridge. My desire was to learn what others were doing to find answers to their lifelong questions. I discovered a number of people presiding over those groups who belittled anybody who did not look like them. It reminded me of the peculiar experiences I had with people like Sister Perkins in Perth. They were those who would never allow anybody to express their thoughts and feelings. Many of them sold shadows for a fee, but there were those who felt they had finally found the right place to have their questions answered. Without any doubt in my mind, they were selling shadows while presenting similar characteristics to what one discovers amongst religious and cultist groups, always desirous to put themselves on top of a pedestal to be worshipped. Certainly, we should never attempt to change people into what we would like to see in them, for it really is not our responsibility. The only thing we can change is our own self. Change yourself, change your mindset, and the whole world will change. When the opportunity presented itself, some people I was recently befriended with wanted to start such a group activity and approached me. They all wanted to partake in research into philosophies and meditation in an unbiased way. We had many discussions with a number of friends when meeting over cups of tea at the Theosophical Society regarding this issue, and after attending some of my public lectures, they felt I was the right person to conduct such a group. I had only recently met Malek, an Egyptian woman, and her husband, a very happy Scotsman, Edgar, who were keen to start such a group in Caulfield. The name Malek translates into an angel. They intended to involve their other friends, some of whom were following a few different gurus, such as Sai Baba, and they met regularly at Malek and Edgar's. The person conducting the other group meditations, who brought his large Dalmatian, did not like competition. He was charging them a certain amount of money, and the members were not too happy to pay another group leader in addition. I was therefore asked if I would do it voluntarily. For some reason it seemed people wanted to have my services only on a voluntary basis for a very long time. But I also knew that folk appreciated more the effort put into some program when it was paid for. One wondered if those willing to have such an activity under my guidance would really appreciate it at all. Only time would tell. Edgar made a suggestion that perhaps they could provide me with donations obtained from members of the newly formed group, although not like the set fee paid to the person conducting Sai Baba-related programs. It took a little while before they could get all their friends together one late afternoon at their place for a general discussion, and when we met they showed great interest in what I spoke. I explained to them what I was intending to research into, my interest in finding ways to discover ourselves anew in the real world, and the importance of why We needed to know what changed the world into its current state. I told them about my previous experiences in mind research and meditations I conducted. Then I decided to give them a taste of a specially designed meditation, which they found extremely healing, and something they needed on an individual basis. They were so impressed that they could not wait until we started the program in earnest.